fastest show in sports.
Greetings, true believers, and welcome back into the fastest show in sports. I am your host, I am your ringmaster, Ed Berliner. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get to it. We got a long way to go and a short time to get there, as always, because it has been a busy week. There is nothing that will get more media attention. It doesn't make a difference whether it's television, radio, newspaper, print, social media. There is nothing that will get any more attention in sports these days than when someone airs their dirty laundry.
We have guys showing up to player-only meetings late, guys not showing up to player-only meetings. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. Do we have to make this mandatory? Do we not have to make this mandatory? It's a lot of things of that nature that we got to get cleaned up, and it starts with the little things like that.
So there's a lot of angles to pick this apart, and we'll do all the above. I want to start here. What do you make of him getting that out through the media?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I was really irritated just sitting here watching, because that's something that doesn't need to be said in a public forum. That's something that you say in front of your teammates. Say, hey, if you got a problem with individuals coming in late or something like that, you can confront them as a quarterback. But to put it out there in front of the media, what does that do, Coach?
Well, I look at it a little bit differently. I see a young man that I think is super frustrated, and I think he's calling out his coaches. Because obviously, if it's player-only meetings, I'm sure he's talked to those guys. It hasn't helped. Probably talked to his coaches. He's saying, hey, we don't have discipline on this team.
There is no doubt whatsoever that Tua Tagovailoa was calling out Mike McDaniel and the coaches for the Miami Dolphins after they lost another game this season. 5 out of 6 they've lost. And Tua goes up to the podium and decides to air the dirty laundry in public. It has everybody riveted right now and everybody with an opinion. I'll say this much for Rodney Harrison. He was part of the New England Patriots, and there was excellent leadership in that locker room. You had Tom Brady, you had Harrison, you had Teddy Bruschi, you had a number of other players, plus you also had Bill Belichick, who at the time basically shut that locker room down. With all that great leadership in the locker room, all that great talent, nobody said anything outside of the locker room because they kept it inside. Tua is saying something now because he's frustrated, because his team sucks, because he knows it does. And he also knows that the only way to get anything done in this franchise right now, which is the biggest dumpster fire franchise in the National Football League, is to say something, is to get it out there, is to be pissed off in front of everybody else. And that's what he needs to do. I disagree with Rodney Harrison completely. I disagree with Tony Dungy. I disagree with a lot of these people, and many of them are former players or former coaches who are saying, oh, you don't air your dirty laundry in public. Yes, you do. Sometimes you need to. Look, I'm one of those guys who has said flat out with a lot of arguments that you need to keep them inside the locker room. You need to keep them inside your group, if you will. But the Miami Dolphins are something entirely different. This is a franchise that's out of control. This is a franchise right now that is nowhere near being competitive, and it's because of the ownership, the coaching staff, and then down to the players. Look, Tua may actually be a decent leader. He may actually want to get something done, but he can't do it because he's got guys screwing around. He's got other guys in there with no culpability whatsoever, no responsibility, no leadership whatsoever. You got a bunch of guys in that locker room, I'm told, that are nothing more than just individuals. They're going their own way. There is no team cohesive in that franchise right now. And that's the reason why Tua feels the need to speak out. And it's about time that people got behind him and understood the frustration that he's got to be going through.
I agree with you. You don't go to the media first. This sounds like to me somebody who's just at the end of his rope.
This is why they need a new coach. This is why they need a coaching change. And I'm never screaming for somebody's job, but at the end of the day, you can't win like that. You can't win when your coach doesn't enforce discipline. You saw how upset Dan Campbell was.
Yep.
Okay, just from his players fighting, and Mike McDaniel, he just hasn't been good this year.
Mid-season change?
I might let him finish it out.
Let him finish this year.
Yeah.
Coach?
Yeah, I'm never for mid-season changes. I don't know what they accomplished, but something's got to change there. This is a talented team that keeps losing at the buzzer.
But Tua has to understand, too, when you say it in a public forum like that.
It's out there now.
It's out there. Now I mean, it creates separation. Now some of your teammates don't believe that they can trust you, that they can count on you. So it creates some division in that locker room. I promise you that.
You take a bonfire and pour a little gasoline on it. Now this is going to be the number one story. Look at us.
All week.
We're talking
All
about
week.
it as the number one headline.
Look, let's get down to the bullshit level here, okay? If there's something going on in that locker room and the other players don't trust Tua, maybe they need to trust themselves. Maybe they need to do some of the work here. Because there's a whole lot of players in that locker room that are screwing up. There's no leadership. Tua may be the guy who's actually trying to show some leadership, a level of leadership. Look, I'll put it out to this. If you're a fan of the Miami Dolphins, if you're an observer of the National Football League, tell me one other person in that locker room that has a level of leadership to keep that locker room together. Now, a lot of people would have said Tyreek Hill at one point. Tyreek Hill's a goof-off. He's not the guy to be a leader. He's an excellent athlete, great wide receiver. He changes games, but he is not the leader. He's not what you need. Maybe Tua is actually growing a pair of stones right now. Maybe he's actually deciding that he needs to stand up, because if he doesn't stand up, the season is gone. Look, the season for the Miami Dolphins is already gone. It's over. It's not going anywhere. But here's a guy who is so invested in what he's doing here that he's willing to break the chain of command. He's willing to actually break the mold, if you will, and say something in public. Yes, it started a tremendous amount of controversy now around this franchise, but this franchise needs a little controversy. It needs a lot of change. At least Rodney Harrison and so many of the others are on top of this by saying, this coach needs to go. There's not a question about it here. Because, look, there's a lot of bad franchises in the National Football League. Right off my top of my head, Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals because of injury, the New York Jets. There's a lot of franchises out there that have problems, but none of them have this toxic interior that's going on with the Miami Dolphins right now, where nobody seems willing to be able to try and at least settle this. I love it when Tony Dungy says there's some talented players on this team. Where? On offense, maybe, but certainly not on defense. Every team has got talented players, but you need to have that tight relationship inside the locker room. And I say, for Tua going out, blowing it up publicly, good for him. Because this franchise needs a kick in the ass. And the kick in the ass right now has got to be getting rid of what may be the single most out-of-touch head coach in the National Football League. Anytime you hear Mike McDaniel talk, he sounds like a guy who simply has no idea what's going on. Look, I come from old school. I was schooled by Don Shula, by the Bill Walshes of the world, by so many of these great coaches. And they answered questions and they said them in complete sentences. When you asked them questions, they didn't tell you everything. Of course not. But at least they made it sound cogent when you got it together. And they sounded like somebody who actually knew what they were doing at one point in time. When you hear Mike McDaniel talk, and when you hear him talk about Tua and what Tua said, you hear a guy that, quite frankly, it's nothing more than incessant babble.
It doesn't surprise me, whatever reaction. I think, regardless of an intent and, what was on Tua's mind, after a loss as the franchise quarterback, that's not the forum to displace that. I think he knows that now. I do honestly believe it was not, there's no ill intention, but you're talking about, I think kind of a misguided representation of player orchestrated film sessions, and the bottom line is no one's going to be happy, and always is looking for reasons for failure to succeed. So you're trying to look for reasons that you can attribute to losses, and there's heavy as the crown of being a franchise quarterback. I think, what I do know is that he's directly communicated with a lot of guys, starting with last night, and that's what teammates do. And you you live and you learn. And ultimately, I look at it like everything else. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Accountability and our team's performance always lies squarely on my shoulders. So we know that as well. But the focus to beat the Cleveland Browns and fix this, fix what we need to get fixed in our game to go attack the next opponent. There's nowhere in that lies anything but focus on what we can do individually and how we can attack this work week, and everything else is not leading us into the direction of solution.
What? That was 2 minutes of complete babble from Mike McDaniel. He said absolutely nothing. Heavy as the crown that wears a franchise quarterback in the National Football League, something like that. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, the man is saying absolutely nothing, and that's part of the problem here. I believe that Tua Tagovailoa has reached a point where he has tried to reach out to this coach, where he has tried to get some leadership. He's tried to get some answers. He's tried to help put things together. And he's not getting anything back. What he's getting is the mealy-mouthed babble of a guy who looks like a 15-year-old, sounds like a 12-year-old, and seems to have all the wherewithal of an NFL coach that you would get out of a jockstrap. I mean, there's just nothing. It's like it's empty. Look, since Tua went off, the people who seem to be really railing against him are former players. And we're rife with former players as analysts these days, talk show hosts. Look, in Miami, they have a former member of the Miami Dolphins who hosts a talk show, a very successful sports talk show. Well, as successful as sports talk can be these days, because the ratings suck on radio, and certainly sports talk radio is a babble fest. But they have a former player for the Miami Dolphins who took Tua to task for what he said. Here's the things that you need to remember. The gentleman who did that, and I know him very well, and I do respect him for what he has done. I'm sure he's not going to be happy when I'm talking about him here. I'm not going to mention names because I'm not going to get into a pissing contest. But if you listen to what he has said, you then have to realize that he works for the franchise. He's paid by the franchise. Sure, he works for the radio station, but the radio station is the rights holder for the Miami Dolphins. And the Miami Dolphins then pay them a fee. There's money that changes hands. In essence, every member of the broadcast team is paid by the Miami Dolphins. So basically, while he can go ahead and say what he wants and criticize, but he has still got to toe a line because he has got to keep interest in the franchise. He's got to at least keep the fans on the up and up. He reaches a point where you can only go so far. So he decides to basically go after Tua and stop going after the coach. Let's go after the coach for a change. I'm not saying that he's wrong totally in going after Tua. Yeah, you don't want a guy going public. But in the same breath, somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to say something out loud. That's some of the things that's happening right now. You have other franchises that suck right now in the National Football League where nobody is saying anything. That's why I applaud Tua. He got up, he put his ass on the line, and he is basically saying to all these clowns who aren't showing up for the film sessions, why don't you show up and do your job? This is your job. You have one job. You have one job, and that's to be in the National Football League, play for the Miami Dolphins, be here to prep, go out and win. Give it your best. That's your job. And what he's seeing right now is a bunch of players that aren't in there giving their best. Certainly on the offense he does. Guys like Waddle and Achane and so many others are in there doing the best they can. But there's other guys on the offense too that aren't showing up. Look, why does Tua throw interceptions? Have you ever considered that maybe he's got an offensive line that really is crap? I mean, a good quarterback still needs a good offensive line. I mean, he doesn't have the tools to get it done. And that defense is the one that's costing them games. Tua could still win games with this offense, but he doesn't have the defense to do it, and he can't control that. So he's basically telling the players, stand up, man up, get in there, do your job, and in the same breath, I have no problem with Tua going public and basically putting Mike McDaniel on the spot. Do it. Look, Tua's a smart guy. You may not always agree with what he does on the field, but he knows this season is done. He knows this season is over for the Miami Dolphins. There's no coming back. They're not going to be in the playoffs. They're not going to make it because they simply can't. They'd have to win almost every game here on out to just barely sneak in. And it's not going to happen. He knows there's going to be a change. Now, he knows it might be him, but he knows Mike McDaniel's gone. There's no way in hell this guy keeps on rolling into 2026. So he knows that he's got to put this guy on notice. Maybe you get him to butch up a little bit, man up, get in there, and be a better coach. Maybe stop being such a mealy-mouthed guy at the microphone, maybe even in the locker room, and maybe get some respect from these players. That's what leadership is. Leadership sometimes is taking the chance, if you will, and getting out there and running the mouth. Go ahead, do it. And as for Mike McDaniel, with some people saying that he should be allowed to run the season out, why? Why, just because there's nobody else there to run it? Anybody could run this. Right now, you could get a Lego character to basically run this team as the head coach. Nobody else is doing anything. So, yeah, I mean, Tony Dungy may say that interim coaches don't work. Interim coaches rarely do work. But maybe it'll light a fire under somebody's ass in this franchise. Maybe to get these guys to actually do something. Because otherwise, they're a franchise going in the toilet. No, I take that back. They're a franchise in the toilet. This Dolphin is swimming in refuse right now. Save the Dolphin. At least let him and let the fans have something to cheer for this season. Because right now they have absolutely nothing to cheer for. So go get him, Tua. Get in there. Stick it to him. Maybe somebody will listen. Stephen Ross. Although I'm not going to hold my breath. Moving on to another National Football League franchise that still has its problems, and still every single week people want to hear, it doesn't make a difference who you are. It doesn't make a difference who you root for in the National Football League. It really doesn't. There's one team where everybody wants to hear about. Everybody wants to know what's going on. Everybody needs to know what's happening with this franchise because they are America's team, after all. But you need to know, and what we need to know even more when it comes down to needing to know every single thing about this franchise and all the ins and outs, the ups and downs. We need good, solid analysis. The type of analysis that comes from a former player, somebody who's been in the trenches, somebody who knows what it's like, somebody who can break down a game, break down the good, the bad, the ugly, and immediately leave us knowing that we have grasped insight that might never have been available before. We need that person.
Man, this is hard because you don't know. If you're a Cowboy fan, you don't know. Yeah, you do. I do. Yeah. Well, you don't know. It's team's up, then it's team down. It's team's up, team down. And a team that loses, I say a team that loses to the two teams that the Cowboys have lost to is worse than a team that even if they beat the other teams that they were not supposed to beat. You know, you cannot be considered a top team if you are not going to be able to win the games you are supposed to win. And the two games, you got the Chicago game, you got this Carolina game. You know, offenses that were struggling a little bit, and, you know, trying to come around, but they get to Dallas and there is no struggle. I mean, they move up and down the football field. I just don't know if I've ever seen a defense this bad, ever, like the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Such insight, such gripping knowledge that we have. Thanks to Michael Irvin, every single one around America right now knows exactly what's happening with the Dallas Cowboys. They have insight. They have the man who's been there. They have the guy who's taken a lot of hits over the years to the head with really what weren't great helmets. But we know everything we need to know about the Dallas Cowboys right now. Let's be honest for a second here. Mike basically said nothing. He didn't say anything that anybody else has said, but because he's Michael Irvin, he'll get 30, 40,000 clicks every time he speaks. That's okay. I get that. But what he really hasn't said is how awful it is in Dallas. I mean, here we talk about other teams, but the Dallas Cowboys continue to be a running joke. And this is a team right now that has a quarterback who's actually doing a pretty good job in Dak Prescott this season. And he's another one. Prescott may want to take a cue from Tua in Miami and call out his coach. But just don't call out the coach. Call out the players. Call out the owner. Because this is always the one thing that I find it difficult. And I hate to do this to some really good people. Because again, as I note, I'm a fan guy. I always root for the fans in everything that goes on. Because you are the guys and gals who got to pay the freight for all this. You pay these ridiculous ticket prices. You pay these parking prices, the concession prices. You basically have to take out a fourth and fifth mortgage on the home to be able to go to a lot of these games. Even to afford them in your house anymore, you still got to take out a mortgage with the cost. So I'm a fan guy. I want the fans to be able to succeed. In Dallas, you can't because you got the biggest horse's ass owner in the National Football League. Well, okay. Yeah, well, no, he is that. I mean, I could put Stephen Ross in there, but Stephen Ross is just clueless. I mean, that's all it is. He's a multi-billionaire with a tremendous amount of money and a lot of other things. And if the Dolphins win, he's happy. If the Dolphins don't win, he'll work on something else. He's got a Grand Prix coming in the spring. He's got a tennis tournament. He's got a stadium that makes money. Come on. He's not that kind of guy. Jerry Jones is the one who sticks his foot into everything and has got to be in charge of everything. And the Dallas Cowboys will not, going to choose my words carefully here, okay? The Dallas Cowboys will not reach a Super Bowl as long as Jerry Jones is still the owner. Now, they've made the playoffs. They might make the playoffs. And as a matter of fact, they might even win a game in the playoffs. In the NFC right now, you can name a bunch of teams that you'd say would probably beat the Cowboys in the playoffs. Easily? Well, maybe not easily because the NFC is one of those divisions. But yeah, you've got teams that'll beat them. You certainly got AFC teams that'll beat them. They may win a playoff game. But they will never win another Super Bowl as long as Jerry Jones is in charge. As long as Jerry is the guy picking the coach. As long as Jerry is the guy making the personnel decisions and making huge mistakes like with Micah Parsons, which he still won't admit to, which has hurt this team, no doubt. But as long as you got him, you're stuck. You're going to be okay. You're going to be an average team. You're going to win your share of games, but you're not going to be that good. And I would love to hear from Cowboys fans. Because if you're watching this on YouTube, all you have to do is get down into the comments section and start this. Or you can send off an email to our Gmail at fastestshowinsports@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from Cowboys fans and tell me why you think this franchise will be able to do anything with Jerry Jones at the helm and why you keep giving him your money. Jerry knows he's got you by the tail. He's suckered you in. You're going to keep paying for this franchise no matter what he does. So he's got you. You continue to make him wealthy. And sure, he wants to win a Super Bowl, but he's not going to. I feel sorry for the Cowboys fans. I do. Nah, I don't. Nah, not really. I mean, no, I get it. I feel sorry for fans. But for Cowboys fans, it doesn't really make a difference to me if the Cowboys win or lose. When I was a kid, I rooted for the Cowboys. And you know why? Because the Cowboys were on TV, national TV, every single week on CBS. They were America's team. We saw all their games like it was a home market, even in New York. And I wasn't a Jets fan. And I certainly wasn't a Giants fan. I just hooked on to the Cowboys, so I became a Cowboys fan. When I played high school football, I wore number 73 in honor of the Cowboys because I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be at that level. But now, nope, you're in trouble. Moving on. We have to move into college football because it seems as if, while there are certain stories that continue to get traction, we can't walk away from them because it makes no difference in college football this year. With great teams playing, with great upsets, with really exciting games this year. There is nothing that captivates college football more than one old guy sitting in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
I'll just start with, right off the bat, some of the reports out last week about my looking for a buyout and trying to leave here and all that. It's just categorically false. There's zero truth to any of that. Glad I'm here. We're working towards, our goals and the process. Had great support from, Chancellor Roberts, Bubba, Steve, and so forth. Mike and Barty. It's been, those people have all been great, and I appreciate all their help and everything. And, we just believe very much in the process. Like Bill Walsh said, the score will take care of itself. And I've always believed that. You just got to keep working and grinding away, and that's exactly what we're doing.
What we are flooded with these days are these internet trolls, these clickbait artists, these YouTube clowns, and all of these other people with so-called inside information telling us that Bill Belichick is going to get a buyout. Bill Belichick is working on a buyout. Belichick's trying to work his way out of North Carolina right now. He's trying to save face. Bullshit! You people don't know anything of what you're talking about because you've never covered the man. You've never known being around Belichick. I did it for a short period of time. I only did it for 4 years when I was covering the Patriots. And granted, there are people who have covered the Patriots for 20, 25 years. They know much more than I will ever know. But because I was close to the New England Patriots for 4 years, I got to know some things, and I got to know the people who know the things that they can tell me that they know things, if you get my drift. And there is no way that Belichick would ever try to get a buyout. He's not that kind of guy. You're all just out there tossing it out. And that's why whenever I catch social media and I catch all of this, Belichick's going to do this, and inside sources tell us this about Belichick. Your inside sources are full of shit. Honestly. Because you don't know what's going on in the program. Well, you may know what's going on in the program. Players may tell you, ball boys may tell you, coaches may tell you, other people may tell you things off the record. But you're never going to get it out of Bill Belichick. He is never going to tell you anything that's going to make you go, aha, there it is. Bill just gave me some insight. No, he doesn't. He is the master of saying absolutely nothing. And in his press conference at North Carolina, when he addressed the recent loss, that's what he said. We believe in the process. We're moving forward. All those reports are categorically false. There's nothing to them whatsoever. And I believe there is nothing to them whatsoever. He's not trying to buy his way out. The only way that Bill Belichick is going to leave North Carolina, he will leave by his own hand when he decides. But that's going to be to get back in the National Football League. I completely believe that Belichick took this gig just to be busy and just to prove to himself that he could rebuild a college football program because he couldn't get a job in the NFL. And I'll give you a shot. Try this on for size, okay? Belichick, the one thing that he hasn't done is he wants to be the all-time winningest coach in NFL history. To do that, he's got to get back into the National Football League so he can catch Don Shula. What would happen? Bet you know where I'm going with this one. What would happen if Stephen Ross with the Miami Dolphins let Mike McDaniel coach this season? Go ahead, Mike. Or even just an interim. Doesn't make a difference. Give up on the season. Then come around to 2026. Belichick's been in North Carolina for a year. He wants his son to eventually be the head coach. So he gets everything ready. He changes the process. He brings in different players. He starts to build them up. He rebuilds the program. Ross has got an opening. And Ross talks to Belichick. And then Bill Belichick takes the job as head coach of the Miami Dolphins and is able to become, or at least try to become, the winningest coach in the National Football League in NFL history as coach of Don Shula's old team, the Miami Dolphins. Think about this. It's insane. I have absolutely no inside information here. This is not a source. This is not a rumor. This is none of that clickbait bullshit that goes on social media. I'm just throwing it out there for giggles and grins because I know Belichick. Okay, look, I'm not the kind of guy who'll have a beer with him. I'd like to have a beer with him. I think it'd be kind of hysterical. You know, even if he brings Jordan along for some giggles and grins as well. But I know Belichick enough to know that he's scheming. He's scheming all the time. And if he can find a way to get back in the National Football League, even at his age, what is his advanced age now? What is he, 142? I mean, even at his advanced age, he's got to go maybe 2-3 seasons. And he's got to have a good coaching staff. And then he's got to win enough games to go ahead and overtake Shula. So, yeah, it does kind of fit for Belichick because it would be historic. Bill would love that he overtook Don Shula while he was coaching Don Shula's old team. Think about that for a moment. As for North Carolina, Belichick is not going to leave. Look, if there's a couple of things about North Carolina that people need to understand. First of all, North Carolina is not going to fire Bill Belichick. They're not going to get him for cause. You're not going to have anybody come in and cancel his contract for a couple of simple reasons.
They can fire him at any time. They would need to pay him $30 million if they didn't fire him for cause. If they do fire him for cause, they would need to show that he, committed some sort of egregious act or that he was engaged in behavior that constituted some sort of lack of institutional control. So the lack of institutional control part is what I think people have been talking about because there's no other grounds currently to fire him for cause under that contract. And again, firing him for cause is the only way to fire him and not have to pay him that guaranteed $30 million.
And again, there it is. They're not going to fire Bill Belichick for cause because anybody who's out there, and this is another one of those clickbait assholeries, if you will, where people are saying that, well, North Carolina's looking to see if they can get Bill Belichick for cause and get out from underneath that $30 million buyout. It's not going to happen. There's no cause here. What has Belichick done? He's eviscerated the program, but he's allowed to do that as head coach. He's kicked out the crappy players. He's allowed to do that as head coach. He's brought in a whole bunch of new players. He's allowed to do that too. And he's pissed off parents who aren't getting their phone calls returned like they did with Mac Brown every single day. And he's allowed to do that too. Belichick hasn't done anything against institutional control of North Carolina. As we've said many times before, he basically took a program that was a middling program that wasn't going anywhere, was never going to contend for an ACC title, if and when the ACC exists in 5 years, but was never certainly going to contend for a national championship, was going to win a few games here and there, make people happy, but that's not what you need right now in this day and age of needing winners and needing to make money and needing that conference buck and needing that TV buck. And North Carolina's not going to get they're going to get their share, but they can't get any more unless they're competitive. And he's in there trying to make them competitive. Has he? No, they suck. But to be fair, he's had to rebuild that program from the bottom. So they're not going to get him for any lack of institutional control. Belichick's the last person to cheat. He's not going to go, and look, it's really even tough to cheat anymore with the transfer portal. I mean, yeah, you got money in there every now and then, but there's really nothing you can call him on. So the only way he's going to leave is if he decides that he wants to leave. And if he decides he's gone as far as he can, and that's why I think he still wants to get back into the NFL. And if he's able to get a job with the Dolphins and that all works out, I think Bill's gone. I think he's in Miami. He's right there running that show. He's right there back in the National Football League. And not only that, but Bill would get almost a perverse laugh out of going up against the Patriots twice a year. And again, he might not get a laugh the way the Patriots are playing because under Mike Vrabel, they're a better team than they were under Belichick or anybody else since him. There's no doubt about it. But Bill is not leaving anywhere. Please, people, do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Stop believing all this crap on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, on TikTok and all this that says Bill is leaving or they're trying to get rid of him or he's trying to buy out his contract. It's bullshit. It's not happening. Understand the reality of the situation. And the reality of the situation is North Carolina, if they can get away with it, they don't want to give him $30 million. Are you kidding? Hi, Bill, go ahead and go bye-bye. We'll give you $30 million just to sit on your ass. Because too many other schools are doing that these days. And too many other schools are now crying poor because they say, oh, we've got to give out all this buyout money. You're the ones who did it. Now, moving on. That brings us to our next topic as well, which goes right into that with regard to Belichick, college football, and money. There is an amazing... Let me see if I can put this a little better here. You've got a lot of people out there in college football right now who are claiming it's getting expensive. You got universities out there who are claiming we need some relief. We need the government to get involved. We need to run NIL better. We need some laws, if you will, because there's too much money being spent. We have to spend $20, $30, $40 million here, and we just don't have it. There's bullshit. You have it. These universities have it. They have this money. But the problem with it is college athletic programs have been pissing money away for decades because they go out, they get all enamored with a certain head coach or a certain idea. They go out and hire him. They bring him in. And they sign him to a contract that has a buyout clause. And the coach is good for them. They're making good money out of it. But every time you hear a college football program, a college athletic program, screaming about the fact that this is costing us too much money, blame them for a change.
Carolina Panthers coach Matt Rule, once hailed as the team builder the struggling franchise needed, is out. But getting fired might not be so rough if you've got the right contract. Here's a look at football coaches with losing records and winning contracts by the numbers. Rule was shown the door this week after his 1-4 start to the season failed to show promise of improving the team's losing streak under his more than 2 years of leadership. But the once much hyped coach, whose 7-year contract for $62 million sent shockwaves through the NFL, won't be leaving any money on the table. He'll be getting more than $40 million over the next 2 years to do absolutely nothing. Over in the NCAA, ousted college coaches are also reaping rewards for their losses. Wisconsin coach Paul Chryst is getting an $11 million buyout after being fired earlier this month. Fired Nebraska coach Scott Frost is getting nearly $16 million to not coach the Huskers. And former Arizona State coach Herm Edwards is fighting the terms of his dismissal to get paid the $8 million remaining on his deal. Meanwhile, at Texas A&M, $86 million is how much the school would have to pay coach Jimbo Fisher to leave. The school hired him in 2018 with promises of playoffs and titles. So far, he's failed to deliver, but the Aggies seem to be opting to keep him on the field rather than suffer the astronomical cost of a buyout. Shocking sums of money for a few. It would appear that failure does pay.
It does pay. And as we know, that report was in 2022, and Jimbo Fisher was bounced. And Jimbo Fisher did get tens of millions of dollars to go away. And now he's basically sitting on his ass enjoying life because he's getting paid to do absolutely nothing. It is endemic. Look, you have these coaches right now, as we're sitting here talking. Troy Taylor at Stanford, Deshaun Foster at UCLA, Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, Sam Pittman at Arkansas, Trent Bray at Oregon State, and then James Franklin this last weekend at Penn State. Every single one of these coaches is getting money to sit on their ass for the rest of their lives if they want. Massive buyouts, tens of millions of dollars. And what we have right now is college athletics, and again, I'm not just saying football because this affects everybody. They're saying, we need help. We can't pay for Title IX programs because we're having to pay too much NIL money. We can't pay to have the men's intramural volleyball team play anymore or travel because we're spending too much money on college football. They're the ones doing it. The players are doing it. They're taking too much money out of our pockets. We don't have the money anymore. Yes, you do. Every single one of these major colleges has gobs of money. See, that's the other thing, too. I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine about the University of Florida, and there's no doubt whatsoever that Billy Napier is going to get fired sooner or later, and he's going to have another massive buyout that he's going to collect when he walks out the door. And my friend is a big Gator, and he knows the intricacies very well. When we started to talk about Napier and the money that was involved, he said, oh, they've got the money. That's always what the fans will say and other people will say, oh, they've got the money, don't worry about it. 30, 40, 50, 60, $80 million? No, they got it. They can pay him. But that money can be used for the entire athletic program. It can be used for the women's basketball and volleyball team. It can be used for the men's baseball and golf team. It can be used to help make up all these deficits because you have college athletics right now that claims to have these massive deficits. The reason they've got it is because they've got 10, 50, 100, $200 million sitting out there that's dead money. And don't tell me that it's all been allocated. That's going to be the next excuse. Oh, they've allocated for that. But it doesn't make a difference. That money can still be used for something viable. That money can still be used for something practical. You can still use it to build an athletic program. Now, on the other side of things, people are going to say, well, I'll tell you what, Ed, if you want to hire XYZ coach, you got to give him that buyout because most of these contracts don't last. Look, Lou Saban, I think it was a 10-year contract extension where he was going to be there until what? 2030, 2034, something like that. And he just up and retired not long after he signed another contract extension. So you're going to say, look, if you want to get the great coaches, you got to give them the promise of a buyout so they can go where they want. Most of them go where they want anyway. A lot of these coaches, look how quickly coaches jump jobs in college football. They'll take a job for a year or two and they get bounced. They'll take a job for a year or two and they'll leave for the next school or the next school or the next school. And they'll just keep doing it, which is fine. That's the way America is. You are allowed to make as much money as you possibly can, as quickly as you can, because it's a capitalistic society. But in the same breath, somebody's got to be responsible for the money somewhere, that the money can be used to actually do something good, something viable in the athletic program. So stop paying these guys $86 million. $86 million. Just think about that for a minute. That's mind-blowing. That's money that basically you could take 10% of that money, take 90% of the money that you've just been handed, you could give it to charities, you could save thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives with that money, and you could still live off $8 million. What are you going to do with $86 million? I mean, after a while, it becomes kind of ridiculous. So stop giving these coaches these ridiculous buyouts and start putting the money where it can do some good. And if the coach says, oh, I'm not going to come play for you then, I'm not going to come coach your team, okay, get the next one. But then again, there's the catch-22. Because if you do that and you miss a really good coach, you won't win. And you won't get 8, 9, 10 wins. You won't contend for the conference championship. You won't contend for the national championship, which means you won't make any of that big money. You won't get any of that big share. You won't get a lot of the TV dollars. See, it's a vicious circle. And it's all about money. But in one sense, it's about a lot more than money. What we have in college football specifically are chancellors and presidents and athletic directors who get so overwhelmed about getting certain players, certain guys who can become their coach. Holy crap, think for a minute if you're at UAB and you had a chance a couple of years ago to get Trent Dilfer. Why would you not get Trent Dilfer? I mean, the guy's got to know what he's doing around college football, right? Right?
And Will Carroll, terrible punt off the side of his foot. That never even crossed midfield. And there is a penalty flag down as well.
Execution. Defense. 12 men in formation. That five-yard penalty results in a first down.
An unbelievable mistake by UAB's defense, and Trent Dilfer beside himself.
Yeah, in that situation, as a head coach, that can't happen. It's unacceptable to not have the right number of guys on the field.
Well, you think about Hughes and that effort on the third down screen pass, and then with 12 men on the field, that's a 5-yard penalty on 4th and 3.
The top of the screen, he actually gets off the field.
That's what everybody's missing in this. The 12th man actually was off the field before the snap of the football. But look, getting back to the whole issue here, UAB had a chance to bring Trent Dilfer in. He had never coached college football in his life. Yes, a professional football player, a guy with some measure of worth in the National Football League. But they get all excited bringing Trent Dilfer. He's going to change the program. And they couldn't wait to get rid of him. Because basically that's the guy that you want as your head coach with that kind of a mentality, going after coaches and players on the sideline in a game and freaking, look, this man's got some problems. There's no two ways about it. Trent Dilfer's got some issues when you go after somebody like that. But UAB got all jacked up and all excited because we can bring him in. We can actually have a Trent Dilfer at the top of the banner right there. And that'll help bring in money, help bring in sponsors, help bring in fans. It's the same thing that North Carolina has done with Bill Belichick. Instead of going for somebody, and Belichick had never coached a college game in his life, but instead of going somebody with college football experience, because college football is an animal unto itself. It is not just NFL light. That's what happens. A lot of people figure, well, he's been around the NFL, so he knows how to coach football. So obviously he'd be great for these kids. He can give them a pro mentality. College is entirely different. And that's why Belichick is failing right now, is because he came in with an NFL mentality into a college football program. It doesn't work. You still need that college football experience. And not only that, but then Bill brought in a lot of his own people who basically had no college football experience either, and it helped screw that franchise up. Yeah, call them a franchise, if you will. Call them a team. Call them whatever you want. But he's helped screw it up because he didn't know how to do college football. Trent Dilfer didn't know how to do college football. And therefore, UAB wasted a few years, several $1 million, and then they got to start all over again. They need to start taking some time to go after the coaches that have earned it. The assistant coaches, the ones who have put in the work, the ones who have put in the time, the ones who have been there in the trenches, the ones who know how to work college football, who know how to work the transfer portal, who know what NIL is all about. To take the game in its essence right now and be able to manage it properly. That's not somebody who's never been there before. That's not somebody who just comes from the NFL because they were a great quarterback or somebody who was a Super Bowl winning coach in the NFL. Doesn't happen. College football shoots itself in the foot every single day, every single season. These programs that are out there that are always whining about the fact that they don't have enough money, or we're running out of money, or we're having to spend too much money by giving guys too much in buyouts. The fact of the matter is, you're the ones screwing things up right from the outset because you don't make good choices. You make these Hollywood choices, if you will, because people with names bring them in, and that's destroying your program. That's what sets your program back. And yeah, just because you bring in somebody, if somebody has 10 years as an assistant coach in college football, doesn't mean they're going to be a great coach, a great head coach. But you can pick through them. They've paid their dues. They're the ones who can say, okay, I can come in and know what I'm doing here. Are they going to make changes? Yes, in just about every instance. And that's what they're fearing right now in Penn State. You're going to have somebody come in, they'll clean out the coaches, they'll clean out the players, they've got a whole new idea on how to do things, and it might take another 2 years. College football, college athletics keeps setting itself back by having these one step forward and two step back kind of ideas here about coaches. Spend some more time, get better people, have better interviews, find out what you need. Stop being all jacked up and jerked off about having a real big Hollywood coach in here that's going to save the program. Because in essence, you're going to do more damage to the program than you could have if you actually tried to save it. So stop hiring the Dilfers and the Belichicks of the world and go after some of these assistants who really have earned the chance to be head coaches. And yeah, maybe there's still going to be a season or two where you won't win, but I guarantee you, you'll do better in the long run because you got somebody there who knows how to play the game and knows how the game is played. Moving on. I happened to come across this the other day, and I had to throw this into the show because as a big hockey guy, I was watching my team, the Boston Bruins, play the Buffalo Sabres, and I was thinking about Buffalo, who hasn't even contested for a Stanley Cup championship in well over a decade, and I was thinking about cities that are cursed. There is no doubt that certain cities are simply cursed when it comes to sports and sports championships. And I think if you're going to talk about a curse, the first city you have to talk about is Buffalo, New York.
Yep, we'll talk about Buffalo. 54 seasons they've been in the NHL. No Stanley Cups to speak of there. One Stanley Cup final of recent history, which would be 1999. And they were dragged there by Hasek. It's been 14 seasons since the Buffalo Sabres made it to the playoffs. There are kids in middle school who have not seen the Buffalo Sabres play a playoff game. You're talking about cursed franchises. It kind of has to start with the Buffalo Sabres, who were first overall in 06-07. So they're so cool that they were cursed by the President's Trophy before the Chicago Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup, and we really started talking about the curse. So Buffalo was ahead of the curse. Most teams are ahead of the curve. Buffalo's ahead of the curse. And I really hope that this storyline changes for Buffalo as soon as possible. I don't want them on the board next time I'm talking about cursed franchises, which I normally am with Misery Index. This is not a Misery Index, though. I don't think I did a Misery Index this summer, actually. I can do an updated Misery Index. Right now, there's Sabres fans going, I think this is enough. But there may be some people who want to see a Misery Index.
So this got me to thinking, not just franchises, but curses, for instance, on cities and franchises. I don't think there's any doubt that the single city that is more cursed when it comes to sports is, without question, Buffalo, New York. Now look, they had an NBA franchise about 1 million years ago. That's gone. Long gone. They've never had a baseball franchise, or at least not a major league franchise. So they have had to live most of their lives with football and with hockey. Now, the Buffalo Bills might be one of the best teams in the National Football League this year. But if you know the Bills' history, you know how close they came and the old wide right, and how many times Buffalo came close and the field goals didn't go in at the end of the game of the Super Bowl, and how they lost again. All that misery, all that pain. They basically, the fans there in the franchise had to put up with that and then go through rebuilding phases again and again and again. And now they're finally here. But look, even last year, even the last couple of years, Buffalo is the cursed city in sports. And then you add the Buffalo Sabres to it. Sabres haven't tasted a Stanley Cup. They haven't even gotten close. Over 50 years. And they've not won a Stanley Cup. I mean, they've been in it a long time. They have one of the most loyal fan bases in the National Hockey League and a loyal fan base in the NFL. So if we're talking about curses, I mean, cursed teams, the New York Jets are cursed, without a question. Even in New York, the New York Knicks are cursed. The New York Mets are definitely cursed. But then again, everybody's had a chance. Cleveland is cursed with the Browns, with the Guardians, with the Cavs. I mean, yeah, there's some success there. But there is no other city in America that is as cursed, that deserves more of our, I don't want to say sympathy, because I know a lot of people out there are going to say, I don't give a damn if Buffalo wins or loses, but you got to feel for them. I mean, come on. They deserve a win, something. I mean, a championship, something. Sniff it again. Why not? So we are going to take, even though I am a Bruins fan, a diehard Bruins fan, I root for the Bruins, number one. I root for the Panthers, second, because I was there when the Panthers were born, and they also have Brad Marchand on the team right now, and Marshy's my guy. So I'll root for the Panthers when I don't have a chance to root for the Bruins. Like if it's interconnected, not connected. I will root for the Sabres this year to at least win and get in the playoffs. Just get there. The Bills are going to make the playoffs. But America, do we not need to feel just a little pain? Do we not need to help our brethren? Do we not need to care for our fellow man? Do we not need to send our thoughts, our best wishes to the citizens of Buffalo, the people, the city that gave us the chicken wing? But it wasn't the Anchor Bar. It was a place called Wings and Things. Don't forget, we'll do that another day. But should we not at least hope for a little hope for these people in Buffalo? Just a little, so that they can have faith and have fun and enjoy their sports. Oh boy. Kind of drain that one pretty quick. Okay, moving on. Finally, I want to go over a couple of things when it comes down to social media because, and again, it's all connected. As I said a few weeks ago, we are going to hear every single day until February all about Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl. The nonsense is going to come up every single day. We're going to be inundated with it. So we just got to get used to it. But in the same breath, people, I'm trying to help because you need help. There's too much of this nonsense going around on social media, and people are falling for it with all this. But some of the stuff is actually pretty good. For instance, here's something from Facebook from a place called Sunday at Arrowhead. It's just another one of these groups, okay? Saying that Patrick Mahomes has spoken out against Bad Bunny. I'm an American. I'd rather take part in an all-American event to honor Charlie Kirk than join the NFL circus. Attributed to Patrick Mahomes. It is bullshit. It is complete bullshit. If you go in and check where the link is, it comes up to some website that's not even sports related. This is all just trolls and clickbait artists who are just having fun with you. They're throwing this crap out there. But the thing is, if you go in and you look on social media, you'll find there are people falling for this. People, stop falling for this. Patrick Mahomes never said any such thing. He's not involved in trying to change the halftime performance. It's not real. Neither is this. NFL fans have launched a petition to replace Bad Bunny with George Strait for the Super Bowl show. And it's right out there. It looks good. It's a headline. Everybody is falling for it. Again, I go in and I look at some of the things that people are saying. They're going, good for George. We need some good country music in there. There's people falling for it. It's not true. It's bullshit. It's clickbait bullshit. So you got to stop falling for it. Just like on the positive side, I do find things every now and then in social media, and this one is the best of the week, without question. Remember Donald Trump when he went to Puerto Rico after Puerto Rico was ravaged by the hurricane and the floods? And there was a picture of Donald Trump where he is throwing paper towels and toilet paper to the people in Puerto Rico. Here, look what America has brought you. We bring you paper towel. We bring you toilet paper. That's why this is my best of the week. Saying that Puerto Rico never forgets. And wouldn't it be great if Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl decided, I just think about it for a second. I know it's not going to happen because it's a Jay-Z production and the Super Bowl would never allow it because it's political. But think how cool it would be if Bad Bunny, if his backup dancers came on stage holding a roll of paper towel and throwing it into the stands. It would be classic. It would be some of the best stuff we've ever seen at a Super Bowl. Ratings would scream, people would scream, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. It'd be awesome. But this week I have to give my best to this one I found as a meme, if you will. The Super Bowl halftime menu. A great menu. It looks like mac and cheese, maybe some pulled pork, some ribs and stuff for the Bad Bunny. But for the Turning Point USA show, white chicken. Just, I don't even know what that is. I'm guessing that's chicken and grits or something like that. But it's white, it's ugly, it's unappetizing. We don't need it, we don't want it, it's unnecessary. So we're going to go with the Bad Bunny food for Super Bowl. I mean, come on, people. Let's just, and again, this comes down to a lot of the aggravation I've had where I'm telling people, how can you get so triggered by a 15-minute music performance? It's 15 minutes and it's going to be over. After the Super Bowl, it'll be over. Stop worrying about it. It's not worth it. And stop falling for the bullshit memes. I will be here to try and help you. I promise. Reminder once again, if you want to get a hold of us, go to the YouTube channel at The Fastest Show in Sports. You can see it right here. Go into the comment section on any of the videos. Start a conversation. We look at everything. If you want to get a hold of us, The Fastest Show in Sports, that's at YouTube. You can go to fastestshowinsports@gmail.com, and also you can send us an email there. Or if you go and you want to listen to us on audio podcast, all major platforms, just look for The Fastest Show in Sports. And there we are. That does it. Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. I did a show last week, and I've got an eye infection, and somebody got on. I think it was it YouTube? Might have been the YouTube. And somebody said, "Got to look out. Looks like he hasn't been using the stuff for his eye to go ahead and take care of all that drinking, that heavy drinking." It's okay. I'm going to be fine. All right. It's just one of those things. Take better care of yourself. I'll do that too. Join us again. Don't forget, we come out, new shows come out on Tuesdays and Fridays every week, and segments on YouTube all the time. For everybody here, for Bailey and Broder, the puppies who always keep things happy, and everybody else who helps this franchise, I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time on The Fastest Show in Sports, rock on, true believers. See ya!
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.